so it can work and carry out.
Did you see the how would you train for speed, and also why don't you monetize your channel?
That's funny. I just turned on monetization on a bunch of videos.
All right, so we're making money. I expect a 50% cut.
The answer is I forgot to monetize a bunch of them.
That's fucking hilarious, actually.
Yeah. You have to click a bunch of stuff to monetize it, and I keep
On
forgetting.
every post.
Yeah, individually, and I keep forgetting to. Because it's hard to do from my phone.
Well, do you have like auto monetization off because if you have to put like sound behind stuff?
I don't think that exists.
What?
I think you have to do it video by video.
When you say you have to click a bunch of stuff, how many clicks are we talking?
Counting scrolling,
Okay.
like 5.
My God. All right, guys, welcome back to Large Lads 8 with your
Make sure
official
you hold your mic closer. To
official new host, Mac Treather, and also returning guest.
Cheers.
Today's topic, we're talking about strongman and powerlifting because I would say I have more of an interest in powerlifting and Sam has more of a interest in strongman at the moment. But I think we see training very similarly in a lot of ways, and I thought both of our reasoning as to like what we like and don't like about each of the disciplines we lean towards would be interesting.
Yeah.
So Sam, strongman
base, powerlifting cringe.
That probably will be the title of the YouTube video.
Yes. Well, yes, it is.
This is a true intellectuals debate.
French low bar, kind of whack. Maybe.
I mean, deadlift suits and figure eight straps, pretty cringe.
That's true. That's fair. What's the question?
What do you like about strongman over powerlifting?
I like that it's like more varied. That's probably my favorite thing. Is like you still have these same core tests of strength. Like you've got squat pattern stuff, deadlift pattern stuff, pressing pattern stuff. I like overhead a little bit more than benching.
That's fair.
Just because it feels more like it's applicable to varied shit.
I like it a lot more.
Yeah, you're a lot better at it.
Yeah.
But you have like these like same kind of general ideas of like squatting, pressing, pulling. You add in some other things like moving, which is like a pretty valid test of strength as far as I'm concerned. Grip is already pretty sufficiently tested in powerlifting, but you've got a couple other things like testing explosive strength. But on top of that, you are asked to test those for varied loading ranges. So it might be a 10 RM, might be a 5 RM, might be a 1 RM, right? Max reps in a minute, or like up to a top single. So it's like, to me, it's like the same idea of testing. Like originally, powerlifting, the idea was you got one lift for leg strength, one lift for back strength, and one lift for pressing strength. Yeah. Right? And we're just trying to find who's the strongest. And it's like anything else, it's become a sport, right? It's not necessarily about who's the strongest, it's about who's the best at powerlifting. The same thing applies to strongman. That's not lost on me. That, like, it's not some pure test of strength. It's like everybody that does strongman says strongman is competitive cheating. It's like, let it down in your fingertips and your straps. Like, can we grab the implement a different way? And it's like a lot of that gamesmanship for competition is like, it's part of the sport. It's like smiled upon. It's not any different than powerlifting. But I do like this idea that it's like, okay, we got a strength test, and it's going to be varied a little bit more. So it's like you have to be a really complete deadlifter. You have to be good for reps, singles, and from varied heights. And to me, I'm like, that's kind of cool, right? Because, 8-inch deadlift is arbitrary. It's my favorite because I think it's tough, right? And it's like, I think a lot of guys in strongman stroke their ego by training from elevated heights always, and they're never pulling from the floor. And it's like, I don't know. I think I would rather train to one of the harder standards we're going to be asked to do in competition, and then be surprised when I sign up for a show and it's easier. It's a higher height. That's a lot less jarring than going from like an easy doing like an 18-inch pull, and then suddenly being like it's axle from the floor, and you have to dial things way back. So it's like I would rather train the harder ones. So I like the 8-inch pull from the floor, but 8 inches is really arbitrary. It's 8 or 9, whatever.
I have no clue.
The height of the deadlift. So it's like, okay, well, it makes sense to me to want to be really well-rounded on like reps and heights. Kind of same thing, put different stuff over your head rather than just like weightlifting where it's a barbell. I like this idea of like anything from a random rectangular block to a log to a bar. We're pretty good at putting one hand or two hands, putting stuff over your head. I like that idea.
I I've always, like, in my mind, I think strongman pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, like, little things that do bother me about it, and there's a lot of things about powerlifting that really bother me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jesus, I will be the first to admit, right, on the local level or the international level, there's plenty of problems with strongman. Like, the lack of an overseeing body kind of leads to a lot of funky stuff happening, whether that be, like, undeserving or deserving athletes getting invites or not getting invites, whereas like that's a little bit more hashed out on the tested side of powerlifting, or even the untested side where it's just like qualifying dots, hit the qualifying dots and you're there, right? You know, strongman is more, because that doesn't exist, there's no dots and there's no world rankings from some overseeing body. You can win a contest and still not get an invite to the next logical contest, right? And it's like, if you got a big social media following, like that one guy from TikTok, you can get invited to Worlds early, you know, or there's this bias towards trying to make it look like Worlds look like a world competition, right? So it's like, instead of getting the next best guy, who unfortunately would be from like America or the UK, they want to create this, you know, spectacle of guys from across the world, and they'll invite someone that's much lower level from a different region, which is fine, like as if that's what they want to do with the contest. But you know, I don't like deadlift suits. I don't like long figure eight straps. There's plenty of stuff I don't like. I just mean, like, that's why, just like how you gravitated towards powerlifting because you like the idea, maybe there's specifics of the implementation you don't like. I gravitated towards strongman because I like the idea.
Something that's, like, I think always, it's not like irked me, but in my mind, like, caused pause in strongman is the idea of, like, if you structure a show, even if you're following the basic tenets of setting up a show, right, of like your general fundamentals, right? You could structure it in a different way that, like, you think like 6 different guys could win usually. If you created like a really favorable show, and like the idea that my potential win is in the hands of promoters who absolutely have a bias, and it's like, sure, powerlifting you can get unfair judging, but it's also like I can visually.
Well, I don't know if they all have bias. I really don't think they're picking events at the Arnold to try to favor a winner. I really don't think.
Do you see the Arnold as like the gold standard?
I mean, it's my favorite. I think the Arnold and now like the Rogue Invitational. I think they're just better run shows. Obviously, like a little bit rough this past year with the bull pull not going to plan and then canceling an event with the rain. Bit of a bad look, but I mean, I also like the Shaw Classic. It's a really, really rigorous, kind of old school written show, like harkening back to like that 2015, 2016 era that Brian really liked, where things are really grueling and really heavy. And it's not a matter of everybody finishes, who finishes fastest. It's a matter of some guys don't finish it. Brian said multiple times, he thinks that's a well-selected weight for an event, is the strong guys finish it. I like those shows more. I mean, I think Giants Live, I'm certainly not an expert in the sport, you know, but I think you can see Giants Live's biases a little bit more clearly, even as a casual, and then extrapolate that out to Worlds. You can see it a little bit, and you know, every athlete says it's a TV show long before it's a competition, whereas Rogue seems to do a better job with the athletes, which I can appreciate. I don't know. I'm nowhere near competing in any of these things, so I haven't put too much thought into it. But as a fan, the Arnold, the Shaw Classic, and the Rogue are my favorite to watch.
I also, I feel like this is a terrible point I'm about to make.
Okay.
The ability to like compare across generations also seems like almost impossible in strongman because like the standard is changing so constantly. And powerlifting has had like 3 major eras.
But even within those eras, it's impossible to compare. So that's like powerlifting for a sport that should be really simple, like weightlifting, where it's like, okay, we can make semi apples to apples comparison in feats of strength. Major difference being drug testing status. Powerlifting should be very much easy, simple. Like we started out of like regular, walked out of comp racks, then we changed it, right? We changed the bars, we changed the equipment. But it's like even within generations, like you'll hear guys say, oh, early single ply and wraps did nothing, but then by the end they were much more substantial. Can't compare in that era. Multiply, the multiply guys are the first people to say, yeah, no, it evolved like quite a bit. There was a time where 700 in multiply was considered top end, great, right? And it's like now you make it to like 1100, and then you make it into, people are like, well, does unlimited count as multiply?
It's funny that I didn't know whether you were talking about bench or
bench,
squat.
bench.
Because both of those.
No, because Lee Moran squatted 1,000 in single ply. And then, but yeah, no, and it's like even we're seeing the same thing now, right? Where it's like reps were reps. They at least were pretty consistent. Guys got a little bit better at getting weight out of them, but reps didn't really change in their specs. But now that we're in like the sleeved raw era, good golly, I don't care what people tell me. I don't know what weird tests they do, stacking plates and stuff. You are going to get more weight out of these new age Inzers or A7s than those blue rebands by a substantial bit, which does make it so comparison is like heavily obscured, which is fine because we're comparing like apples to apples in current competitors.
Yeah.
But the same kind of issue arises.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like,
how do I compare that to somebody with 2014 and like a bad pair of...
but I would argue that doesn't really matter because you can't really do that in any sport. It's really tricky to compare greats between eras in any sport because the sport evolves.
Well, that does suck because it's like, I'm going to go a little tangent here. I think current era powerlifting heading in a bad direction. I really don't like the kabuki bar. I think it's really lame.
Oh, you mean untested? Because there's two different directions it's going.
Also, new gen knee sleeves, I think fundamentally also very lame. That is being allowed in the IPF is pretty cringe. I don't know.
I do. That one is a bit odd to me, right? Because it's like they're clearly trying to model the sport after weightlifting, the one that's in the Olympics for now, right? And it's like they're taking plays from their book. Everything from the graphics on the screen to how it's run is trying to allude to weightlifting. Weightlifting, they're not. I don't know. I like this idea of like massive shifts in meta. Those get thrown out the door in modern weightlifting. Like if somebody came up with a janky technique to lift a bunch of weight.
Yeah. So of Steinborn squats into an
The
overhead position.
the IWF is going to be like illegal lift, right? They're just going to say, or like maybe it flies for one meet and then they addendum the rules, right? Whereas it's weird in powerlifting that we're allowed to like bring in new equipment that's like fundamentally pretty different. Like I understand this numerical, like it is technically still neoprene and the thickness is different, but it's like I don't know. It creates like an artificial sense of progression within the sport when it isn't necessarily there.
Yeah.
Which it is. Obviously, guys are getting way better. The gene pool being, when I say there's an artificial growth in the sport, I don't mean all of the growth is artificial. The vast majority of the sport getting to higher and higher feats of strength is just more and more people doing it now that like everybody's in a gym, everybody's bullied into squatting, benching, and deadlifting. Yep. And if you show talent at those things, you're kind of pushed towards powerlifting. The gene pool is misleadingly large.
Yeah.
Even if the number of people competing is the number of people that are exposed to the sport, which is single, like testing your maxes on squat, bench, deadlift, really actually quite large. Yeah. The gene pool is surprisingly big.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is annoying because it's like I have this like unrealistic notion of what powerlifting is in my mind, right? And, like,
the old school big guy.
And like what it should be, right? And
we're all just Doug Young.
Well, I think the Doug Young quote of like, I don't do circus tricks, that has done damage to my ability to do strongman. I'm like, that is true. I don't do circus tricks. I'm here to lift weights to a standard that I deem like, and part of me is like, I have this idea of powerlifting being like still a good gauge of strength if you just do it right. But if you're doing it right, you're like losing kilos to people who are going to do it in a more optimized way for the sport, which is how sports work.
Yes.
But like I have like the idea of like the spirit of the sport, in which like let's say we never made anything for your knees or your hips. We all just wore belts. Everything else we just said like that's nonsense.
Yep.
Like that is a far more interesting test of like true strength. We got rid of a turbo French bar low squat.
Which they did, and then they undid it.
Yeah, we had the Ed Cohn rule. And then, like, I don't know. I think super archers only affect small weight classes. They can do whatever they want. And then, like, stiff bar kind of negate or lessens the difference between a sumo and a conventional. There's a direction of powerlifting that I think would be very, very cool. And I think strongman is like if we're talking like an Arnold strongman, is a better like holistic test of strength. But also, do you see strongman potentially going down the same way of like people getting like turbo optimized and like a very against the spirit of the sport?
Well, I mean, it is the spirit of the sport to try to win. You know what I mean? Like no one's saying Novikov is going against the spirit of strongman. If anything, everybody that actually competes in strongman is like, yup, that's the sport, right? Like, Magnus Ver did a lot of these things way back in like 2000, right? And he won 4 times, right? So it's like, I don't know. I don't pretend to be like an expert on these things. Because it's like you have one direction, which is what are the open heavyweight men doing, right? Which has just kind of had its own trajectory for a long time. There's some major shifts in that trajectory with like Brian wanting to compete with Worlds potentially. You have Rogue stepping in with holding 2 of the biggest shows of the year and them having a bigger hand. So I would say like World's Strongest Man's market share has kind of come down.
It's hard because it's like greatness in strongman is still heavily gauged by number of worlds wins.
That might shift though, because Thor Thor has said he's not going to be doing worlds, at least what he's planning on right now. So I think that when you take a really popular athlete and you have them not doing worlds, their larger fan base is going to start to they're going to start to question, oh, is that the biggest content? Because you're like historically, number of worlds wins kind of defines the career.
Yeah.
But now that we have more contests, and now that some guys like potentially, I don't know if Martins will probably be doing the worlds. I think he said. I think he said he would. But with like Thor not doing it, maybe other guys following in his footsteps, it'll draw awareness. You can be a competitive strongman without doing worlds. But then you have every other weight class, all of the women's weight classes, every other men's weight classes. And that is like a separate trajectory that is like picking up and like that's like almost entirely through OSG. You have you have the Clash on the Coast for a while, right? So you have this separate thing, right? And I know some people have like voiced some annoyance that, everybody's only paying attention to the super heavyweight men. Right. And like that is the sport when there's the other weight classes and these other great athletes. And it's nice that now like Giants Live and Rogue are putting on women's shows. So it's like, okay, we're getting like the women included into this great upward trajectory we have for the open men in terms of rising popularity. But in terms of like the specifics of the sport, I don't really know. I haven't put too much thought into it. I'm doing it the way I want to do it. Like I'll happily put some bumpers on the inside of my deadlift bar and wear straps, but I'm not going to put on a deadlift suit. Is that an arbitrary distinction? Yes, it is. Yeah. That's just how I want to do it, right? And it's like, I'll put stuff over my head. I'll try to get really strong. If I have the opportunity to compete at a high level, I'll compete at a high level, but I'm just going to do what I think is cool. Same thing you're doing, right? Where it's like, I'm going to power lift the way I think is cool. You don't have a pair of Inzers.
I might take off my knee sleeves. It's annoying because I do want to get 800 first.
We'll just do 800 and then just do it like that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the cheatiest 900 deadlift ever. It's going to be complete bullshit. Yeah. Straps, down on the fingertips, bumpers, hitched out. Yeah. Then I'm going to go over to an axle bar for quite a while.
Pretty cool. I always have like the problem of like, I'm like, I want to move to like my better standard. But I'm like, I want to chase a number. Yeah. And I've been doing it because it's like, I want to get like, I want to get 1,000 kilos. But then I want to get 2,300 as a junior. And it's like, well, then at what point do I do this? Because the change is going to get progressively harder to do over time.
Well, there's always going to be a next objective as soon as you get one.
Oh, even before I have, I have an objective after the next objective. Like I'm always on the so like, when do I take that step back to make that change? Because I do think like we've joked about like it's like kind of like legacy bulletproofing. Like if you just don't have any.
If you have a sleeve, if you have a no bare knee meat, it's the only thing that's going to age in a way where people know what it means.
Yeah, well, like Don Reinhardt's 2,300 full raw.
People don't know about it for some reason, but it's like it's the only thing that like someone in the know can look at and they can instantly relate to because everybody has squatted without sleeves. Yeah, not everybody's squatted in the blue rebands. Not everybody's used knee wraps for a while. Not everybody's used multiply. Not everybody's used single ply, so they might not have a scale of reference for like the feat of strength on the squat that you did. Yeah. Right? Everybody has squatted bare knee at some point.
And like I just think that's how it should be. We've always said like you need X piece of equipment for safety. Or whatever, like, you needed the squat suit for your hips so they'll explode or whatever. And then we said, like, maybe you need that for the deadlift, too. Yeah. And then it's like, I think it's just, like, a truer test of strength. Like, the less variables you have to be able to, like,
absolutely
game.
People are good. If you give good athletes any piece of equipment, they're going to figure out how to get a little weight out of it. Yeah. Wrist wraps, you can figure out how to get a little bit of weight out of them. Yeah. elbow sleeves, even if they're not that tight,
Yeah.
you can figure out how to get a little bit of weight out of them. A fat pad, you can figure out how to get a lot of weight out of it. It's like if you give every good bencher a whippy bar,
Yeah.
they're gonna figure out how to get weight out of the whippy bar.
Yeah.
You give everybody you give anybody anything, they're gonna figure out how to leverage it because they're really, really good athletes that are very, very adept with figuring out how to get weight on the bar for this lift because that's been their sole focus for quite a while.
I don't know how much of like an arbitrary line this is, but in my mind it's like adding mechanical tension to help you lift the weight. Like an elbow sleeve or a knee sleeve or a squat suit, or like a belt is like a stagnant thing. Like it's helping you. Like I get weight out of a belt. I have been holding my mic so far. I'm so sorry if my audio's been terrible. Like a wrist strap is like in my mind, is not adding like mechanical tension to like lift the weight for you.
Well, I had an idea.
Okay.
You could argue that the very nature of strongman, like both sports are going to have that issue,
Yeah.
but you don't have as long to specialize into any one lift
Yeah.
and game it quite as much. Because it's like once you figure out how to game the 18-inch deadlift for a whole prep, you turn around and you have an axle off a deficit.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, yeah, there's core fundamental. Like, it's like, you know how to use a suit. There you go.
Yeah.
You know how to use some long figure eights. There you go. You know how to use the rules of what constitutes a lockout. Right? Where it's like there's no side judges, there's only a head judge. You just pull to like mid-thigh and make direct eye contact. Like, you can figure these things out. But I think that the very nature of it somewhat alleviates that like idea of like hyper specialization and that hyper specialization leading to getting a ton out of equipment. But
Here's my shot call for how to solve my own self-reported problem in strongman.
Okay.
It's like golf, where you have majors, and which is like the four major like
That's
big
kinda-
competitions. Is like we just call those like the main strongman games. And it's just the number of total wins you have across those.
that seems to be like a growing thing, right? With like Mitch Hooper bringing awareness to the fact that he did he got the win at Worlds Arnold Rogue.
Yeah.
And how that was what Halfthor did.
What did
during
he take
his-
second at? Well, I thought he was going for like a quad, and then like failed to get the final.
Well, Brian won the Shaw Classic. If that's
And he
what
got
you're thinking
second. Did he get the second?
of. I don't remember.
Okay.
I assume so.
Something like that.
Right, but it's like, yeah, I mean, people are bringing more awareness to it. It's like, no, we don't have just one contest a year. We've got 4 big international contests. And then
Yeah.
you have like, the World Tour Finals for Giants Live, which probably falls just a little bit shy of that level. You have Europe's Strongest Man. The English guys have Britain's Strongest Man, right? There's these high-level contests, but you have like the big 4 or whatever it is. And like,
It's crazy.
I mean,
how-
doesn't golf work? I don't know shit about golf. Doesn't golf work that way? Where there's like,
yeah, the majors. So there's like I think
but isn't one of them kind of like the biggest one, even though
Yeah.
like technically all the good guys are showing up to all of them?
yeah. There's the one that's
Yeah.
extra big, I think.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like the U.S. Open and the Masters or something. It's not
Whatever
definitely
the
not
fuck it
US
is.
Open.
Dad explained
World
this to me.
Cup,
Dad
something like
explained
that.
this to me one time.
Yeah,
Right?
it's really funny. I hope this is just not how golf works at all. I just
But
made up
they
my own
got bought
system.
by the Saudis, so maybe it's not how it works at all.
Yeah, here's hoping for strongman and powerlifting too. Amen.
Pay us.
I was gonna say like because like Brian and Z's like both of their like comparative greatness is so heavily around worlds, even though Z has.
I don't think that's true. That's not necessarily true, though, right? Because they've got the same number of Worlds wins, but most people agree that aren't just Brian fanboys.
I thought Z has more.
Don't they both have 4? They have both 4.
Okay.
Poods has 5.
I don't know.
Pujanowski.
Yep.
But most people agree Big Z has the greater career legacy because of 10 Arnold Classics.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, we defer to the next biggest contest.
Yeah.
And who knows, with more time that might shift, right? It's like Halfthor is going to have to go down as one of the greats, right? Currently, he sits at 1 Worlds win.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like he's going to add to that.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, again, that might just bring more awareness to the fact that there are other high-level competitions other than Worlds. To fans that follow the sport really, really recreationally. Just having some grasp of that is good.
It's something in my mind that like I've always like the idea of a record is drastically more valuable than the idea of a title.
That's very powerlifting centric.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are guys who care about like a world title way more, which is
which is very sport.
within
It's very
powerlifting?
sport-like. You know.
yeah, well, like that is like a weird thing, right? Because
It's not. No, it's not weird. It's like the same thing with like anything where it's like numerical outcomes.
yeah,
There's something to be said for God. would I rather have the fastest 100 ever ran or be an Olympic champion?
Yeah.
I would rather have the fastest 100 ever ran.
Really? If you were like a bum that like...
If everybody knows I've run faster than that guy one time, fuck yeah. It's like the same thing. And, you know, like athletes should be conditioned to try to win. That's what athletes do. It's the same thing with shot put, right? It's like winning a world championship or winning the Olympics. Big fucking deal.
Yeah.
But also, if I've thrown the rock, even if I'm the guy who choked it at Worlds, if I've thrown the rock further, you know, you could argue that the guy that's more consistent on the day and won the Olympics, he's the better, I mean, no quotation marks, he's the better shot putter because he was able to replicate the performance when it mattered, right? It's just like people are like, oh, I threw this in training. It doesn't matter.
It's so funny, the idea of like, both of us are like, definitely have like a pretty similar mentality when it comes to sports, even though we're doing two different strength disciplines.
I barely even do strongman. I just lift weights in my garage.
Sam, you're messing up this cool gimmicky YouTube title.
We made it far enough in. Everybody's clicked. Everybody's clicked off already. We're too tired, and it's going to be boring as shit.
No, this one's good.
Is it?
This one's a heater.
You think so?
I don't know. I have no idea. Also, I will say the
I think this is a rough one.
Do you think this is a rough one?
I think this is a rough one.
We've not been funny. I've noticed. Like,
well, that's what happens when you roll out of bed and get ready to do large lads.
Amen. One, I think there's a lot of athletes. Like if you presented them with a whole record or an Olympic title, would pick an Olympic title for sure.
Yeah, because I mean that's what athletes do. Is you're supposed to win.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost this weird like hobbyist thing.
Yeah.
To be so caught up on the number you did at like qualifiers.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's kind of like an amateurish take.
We got into this as an amateurish hobby. You know, and it's like that's very much the spirit of early powerlifting. Is you're gym lifting.
Yeah.
And you're better than the other guy's gym lifting if your gym lift is more.
Yeah.
Right? And that like logically can progress if you don't view it as a sport. You just view this as official gym lifting.
Yeah.
Right? Then it logically progresses into big number better.
It is funny because it's like my standard in my head of what lifting is definitely like supersedes any rule of powerlifting, which I'm like, if I squat it high, it doesn't count at all.
Well, I mean, that's what the rules say as well.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter because the rules say whether a judge gives you a white light or not.
Yeah, but no, the rules don't say that. The rules say that
they say three white lights is a good lift.
This man has never read the powerlifting rule book.
I do say that. They say 3 white lights is a good lift.
They also say in the thing that your hip crease has to be below your knee. That's an objective standard.
That's
a written
that
rule.
is up to the subjective decisions of it. I really am making an argument of someone who squats high.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the rule book says 3 white lights is a good lift.
Yeah, you compete SPF.
Yeah, goddamn.
That's what the rule book says.
It's so funny because like I talk about this like weird like fundamental like essence of what powerlifting is, and it's like you could also just go choose to compete in the SPF and take a world record.
I mean, that's really frowned upon now, though.
I'm so glad that it's like we can just like look and be like, that was a bad lift. This was cringe of you.
Yeah.
It is annoying that even the major feds still occasionally just throw an insane gift.
Yeah. It's less common though. It's weird though. Like you watch like the U.S. Open or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. It's not been around for a minute.
Yeah. What was this year's one? The American Open?
American Pro.
American Pro. Thank you. You watch the American Pro, it's like they will throw out like occasionally like there's a bad call that goes in favor, but it's like a lot of the time it's not for the good athlete. It's just for some guy early in the flight, cut his squat and the judges blinked or something, and it's like, yeah, there's going to be human error.
Yeah.
Could we move to like a video review board? Sure. I think that would slow down the sport though. Because you just like the better coaches, you'd have more and more gamesmanship, which is already moving towards on the tested side of the sport of like
dispute every single lift.
Yeah, you fiddle with your attempts and throw off your opposition, and it's like there's a lot more and more game day coaching becoming like a relevant thing in like tested powerlifting, much like weightlifting, where like having a coach to handle you really matters. Whereas in the past, you could definitely get away if there's no gamesmanship going on and you're just a decently objective athlete. You can call a third you can do.
Yeah.
You don't need to be fiddling with your attempts and challenging. But like we talked about, that's just you trying to PR your total. That's you trying to just stay in your own lane, focus on your own total.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Which is what we were told getting into the sport.
Yeah, very
But
funny.
now it's try to win.
Yeah.
Load what you need to load. Do some gamesmanship with trying to get people to take shitty second attempts or third attempts. And try to win, right?
Yeah, in my mind, if I just show up and like I'm stronger than the guy and I total what I can total, I'm gonna win because he's not capable of
I think that's
manifesting a strategy to be stronger than me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely like a reductionist way to think of it. Like there's going to be a time when someone's close. Like when Luke Richardson and Pavlo faced off at Europe's.
Yeah.
I think it was Europe's because the first battle was at Worlds and then Europe's, right? Luke Richardson's the first person to tell you Pavlo was stronger than him. And he won because he made good attempts. Pavlo was doing exactly what you're describing, which is staying within his own lane and loading what his training indicated he was possible of and not really paying attention to what Luke was loading. Had he been a little bit more tactical with his attempts and just done instead of doing what can I do, what do I need to do, he probably
He
would
took an outrageously heavy second attempt on his deadlift. Which
exactly because he was just going off of his training.
Oh, right? You think? I think that was like an attempted strategy.
You think?
Yes.
I don't know. Either way, right? The gamesmanship.
Yeah.
If he was willing to just do what I need to do to win, he probably would have won. There's going to be a time when someone shows up close enough in strength to you that competing matters, right? Powerlifting is like uniquely almost not competitive to where you can go a whole career staying in your own lane and just trying to improve your total and become wildly successful as an athlete. Yeah. In the lighter weight classes where like the attempts are more clustered and they have more depth and it's like there's probably 4 guys within like a close distance of each other in the 93s. The gamesmanship becomes bigger. Yeah. Supers, that's less common because it's very, very rare to have really closely clustered supers competing together.
Yeah, it's basically like
it almost never
big
happens.
dogs, I guess. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's very funny because in my mind I'm like, all right, well, if let's say I'm really close with someone, right? I just take what I'm capable of. That was our game plan. And if he beats me, good man. You beat me on the day. I come back. Next
But
day
it's like there's gonna be some margin there where it's just like, hey, we prepped for 8:30.
Yeah.
8:35 wins. We're loading 8:35. That's not what our training. That's not what we prepped for, right? Or vice versa, right? We prepped for 8:30. Yeah. You only need 8:20 to win. Yeah. We're loading 8:20.
Really?
We should.
That's okay. In my mind, I have no chance.
If this is like some kind of meet where someone's close to you, then that never happens. But like if you won with 8:20, I would rather take the higher probability of winning. You know, it could be really stupid to be like, oh, we trained for 8:30, and then you drop 8:30. Yeah, that's gonna be a rough car ride home. I'm the one who has to deal with living with you. If something like this were to happen, you're terrible.
I will say, like the whole like you enjoy winning more or losing less. Man, I hate losing.
You've never lost to me, have you?
No. Well, I've lost to myself. You know, it's me versus me, and sometimes I lose, which sucks. Where it's like I just come in with crazy expectations and it doesn't go to plan. I consider that losing.
Yeah, I know, and then you're a bitch to be around because you're all mopey and yeah.
Oh, it's been good on not knocking over the camera.
Yeah, no, he's been avoiding it.
Pretty good. Do you think you enjoy winning more or losing less?
I don't even enjoy winning.
Failing.
I don't even enjoy winning very much.
You just hate failing?
It's just relief. Like when I did that 600 bench press, I was just super relieved I didn't fail and have to keep pushing for it.
I feel, it's funny because it was a very short block and you hit it early, right? Whenever I have like a lift that I've been waiting for such a long time, it's like, just finally.
It felt like I was waiting forever. Because I felt so shitty.
Yeah.
From like gaining so much weight so quickly. Like I felt
like 70 hours.
And then like being like just like super sleep deprived. Like it's like every minute feels like a day. It's fucking terrible. So I was like, let me get this done, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously I'm not that motivated by winning because I don't bother to compete very often. You know what I mean? Like I just lift.
What makes you steer away from powerlifting?
Right now? Shh. Come here. Come here. Handsome. Thank you, buddy. Come here. Come here. Come here.
or in general, because you've become like a self-proclaimed
gym lifter,
pseudo strongman,
gym hero.
In
general, I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't really want to.
No reasoning.
I'm training. I'm busy. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like right now, the reason I wouldn't do powerlifting is because bench press would get in the way of my development of my overhead, which is a bigger priority right now. Mm-hmm. That's the main one, right? Yeah. Right there. I don't know. Historically, it's just like at some point I do plan on doing a meet with you for fun. Like just do like a 10-week prep, see what kind of shape I can get in 10 weeks. It was like specific training for 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. I'm not averse to it, and I had fun when I did meets. It's just I like training. Like I just don't want to do a deload week.
But you've structured your training more around strongman than powerlifting. Is that just because you enjoy the fundamentals of what strongman could be in your mind more?
Yeah,
'Cause you don't compete in strongman really either.
Yeah, no, I barely do. I mean, I'm going to do the Rainier this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I've committed. Hold me to that.
Mark his words.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. I like strength training. And that is a better description of what I view strength training as than powerlifting is. Because I want to be good at reps and whatever, deadlifts from heights. So I guess what I'm doing is a lot more akin to strongman. It's strongman is the closest sport to what I would be doing regardless of whether they existed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, I like overhead. I feel like I've already achieved a pretty high level in the bench press. I want to get my overhead to that same level, right? So it's like, okay, I would be doing mostly overhead work right now, regardless, because I've achieved a high level in the horizontal press. I want to achieve a high level in the vertical press, right? I'd be squatting regardless because I just think that's like a fundamental bit of strength training that I want to be good at, right? And then like, I got some ideas from strongman of like, oh, moving is a very valid kind of strength.
Yeah.
Oh, sandbags and stones are a very valid test of strength. So I want to be good at those, right? But it's like, I just like strength training in this zoomed out perspective. And strongman is a sport that fits it better. Not perfectly. Like my passion isn't strongman, my passion isn't powerlifting. It's just strength training. And then I can get some ideas for what well-rounded strength training looks like from these different tasks they do in different strength sports, right? Like I'll always squat. I'll always probably squat without a box. I'm going to free squat to depth.
Yeah.
That's something I definitely took from powerlifting for a while. Is I really like that as a builder of strength and as a test of strength. So that stays in forever, right? I took away like different things, right? And I've taken away more from strongman. And then I figure if I'm going to get really strong and I'm going to spend all this effort, I might as well compete now and then, right? Like show off what I've been working on in my garage.
Yeah. Fundamentally, I think I would like strongman a lot if it was like just more powerlifting but still held a lot of the elements.
If it was 2016 Arnold, was every contest with like some variety?
Well, yeah, it's like 5 events that are all the same type. Where it's like we know we're gonna do a yoke,
Ultra heavy,
a carry, we're gonna do a squat or deadlift of some kind, we're gonna do an overhead of some kind, and we're gonna do a medley.
Yeah, but that's also just relying on comfort, right? Because it's like, oh, I know what the thing is gonna be every time. We're gonna have a deadlift, we're gonna have a press, we're gonna have a carry, a stone, and a grip.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool. It's like powerlifting, but with 5 core events with a little bit of variety thrown in on top.
Bang. That's what I want.
Well, that's what Max wants to do, and I would enjoy that. It's not lost on me, though, that there's a big benefit to not having that because it forces you to add more skill sets and to fix small weaknesses in your physical development that could coast by even under that like 5 event format, right? Because it's like, oh, there's now a throw. You can't be slow. That's something you have to fix.
That's where my mystery event comes in.
Yeah.
I'm creating the Max Games, in which I design my own sport and I win every single year.
Brian's way ahead of you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, would I really like it? Would I I would compete more regularly if it was just this like really cut and dry format. Yeah. That's not what strongman is, and I don't mind it. I don't want to change the sport that I'm barely a part of. That'd be a little arrogant, right? And so I'm learning to appreciate that variety of just like, if you are new to strongman and you look on Open Iron Podium to find a show, you're not going to find a show with 5 events you like because there aren't 5 events you're good at yet.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're waiting to find the perfect show, you're never going to find it. If you just sign up for the one that's close to you, and let's say you have one good event, you're a good deadlifter because you didn't been deadlifting. Yeah. You prep for this show. Turns out you're pretty good at farmers. Okay. So you're like, I now have 2 good events. Yep. And I can keep that in the back of my mind when I'm looking at shows. But again, I need to keep signing up for shows.
Yeah, I find I'm terrible at Viking press now. I spend most of that prep getting better at Viking press.
Then it Viking press isn't then you're bad. Decent at it. Yeah. And it's like, then you find another show with it and then you're good at it, right? So it's like, it forces a level of well-roundedness and each show is a puzzle, right? Which from a coaching perspective is fun. It's very cool to like tackle the puzzle of how to prepare, right? So that's one thing I do very much like about the sport. And then this idea of it being heavily varied, you could think about it as adding skills, adding good events, and knowing how to prep them. And also you could think of it as like physical development, right? Where it's like, oh shit, my strict strength or my strength with like leg drive is like behind. Yeah. This event exposes it. I need to fix that, right? So it's like you add more and more events to your list of events that you're passably good at, you need to sign up for shows that don't have nothing but good events. But the problem is, like, I think that's what keeps a lot of people from competing, is they're always like, oh, that event doesn't have good show, like that show doesn't have good events for me. That means you should do that one if you have intentions of becoming a better strongman. Because let's say you're 0 for 5. It's 5 events that you're shit at.
Yeah. It's a very productive training cycle.
It's going to be a very productive training cycle, and you're probably going to figure out one of them. Probably one of them is going to go terrible, and you're like, wow, man, I didn't figure that out at all.
0.
Yeah, it's like, wow, I did not figure that out. I didn't figure out how to prep for it. I didn't figure out like what loading ranges, what frequencies work, my technique. I didn't figure out anything. One of those, you're going to go really well to where you almost feel really comfortable if that's in another show, because you're like, I have the general blueprint for how to improve at this. I just need to do it again, like axle. I have never done a good axle, right? But I did that 150 kilos, 330 pounds at my first show. Right. And at the time, that was a decent result. And I know what I did to get better. So I feel pretty confident, even though I've never done a good axle, that if a show has an axle, I can use those blueprints to exceed that result. So it's like, maybe it's not a great event. It should be, because I'm good at pressing.
Yeah.
But I'm not so great at the cleans. But I have confidence that like every time I prep for it, I will achieve a new high result for quite a while, because I have a rough blueprint of like, okay, you need to touch with frequency. These are the techniques that I'm trying to use, yada, yada, yada.
I don't like the idea of like the amount of like equipment you need to have, and like how much of it's like who can like solder together this like Viking press, where like in my mind it's like most people have access to, or most people who are going to be interested in this
Well, that's
sport.
something that's changing though, right? Is because in the past, nobody had the equipment.
Yeah.
So it was who could improvise and prepare the best.
Yeah.
Now, definitely.
I don't like that element of the sport at all. Like
Now
the idea of like
there's-
who can like put together a yoga ball Atlas stone the best.
That's fun though.
I hate that.
As long as we're all equally underprepared, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
But if it was like the 80s in which no one was preparing,
Yeah.
specifically at all, that does sound way crazier. Like part of me was like, that's pretty wild. If I was cool with injuries, I would go do that. Where it's just like no one is capable.
Picking up a stone with zero specific preparation is always a little dicey if you're a big, strong guy.
Well, it's like, oh yeah, the show, we're gonna find out the event's day of. Where
Yeah.
it's like that is just a gauge of strength, because it's like I guess you're still like who can game it the best on the day.
That's a big thing though. Like it's just like you look at like it's like lots of guys never got to train on the Roga coaster.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like you watch the guys go before you and say, oh, long big pulls or short fast pulls, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot that goes on there that like can affect results. But I don't know. I think it's definitely like nowadays. I would say it's becoming so common if you live in like a major city area, you can have access to all this equipment. There's going to be a strongman gym. We don't live in a major city, so I'm a little bit handicapped.
Yeah.
But it's like it's not the end of the world. I would say it's like nowadays it's accessible enough for most people that live in like highly populated areas. Even if one day a week you have to make a bigger commute, and then you can prepare specifically, and then you're all good to go, right? I'm working on it. We got the good old stone of steel, yoke, farmers, axle, log, wagon wheels. You don't really need wagon wheels. You just pull off blocks or pull off the rack.
Our blocks keep breaking for some reason.
I keep making very bad blocks.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, you could like I need to buy a circus dumbbell still. That's something that's just I don't have very much experience with at all.
Yeah.
That needs to be added to my repertoire.
It is also annoying that it's like I feel like I'm pretty strong at this point, right? I'm so worried about like the transition. If I made like a transition into like a strongman type thing, that I'm like I feel like the injury risk is so much higher.
No, not if you do it well.
What if I don't do it well? Is the issue?
Yeah, I mean you could hurt yourself. I mean, we could just do a quick challenge of Max. Do a maximum like mixed grip axle high pull.
I can do it.
And
I hurt my back.
You would hurt your bicep.
I think I hurt my back.
I think you'd probably hurt both. I don't know. It's just like there's certain things you can do. That's like if we want to maximize our chance of tearing a bicep, we can do that.
Yeah.
Maximum like bent arm pickup.
Yeah. All right, guys. Like in the comment section.
This was brutally bad, I bet. Tell us if it was really bad. We'll fix it for next time. Max rolled out of bed, took a shit, and then we turned on the camera.
All right. They don't need to know the process.
The method to the madness.
300 likes, Sam will